Nice. You have Starbucks, I can tell. I'm still on my second one. We're glad you're here, whether you're half asleep or twice awake. We're glad you are watching online, whether you're in bed or you're already awake, already up. It's good to be together. We're going to connect with God this morning as best as we know how. There's no right or wrong way to do it. All that sort of matters is the intention. So I want you to be comfortable, feel loose, open up your heart, your soul, open up your body to just connect with your Creator. Things happen when we do that. We're going to bring the things that weighed heavy on us this morning. We're going to bring those to God. And we're going to give them to Him so we don't have to carry them. Woke up with this heavy weight on my shoulders. Woke up with this heavy weight. Bring it here to you. I woke up with this heavy weight on my shoulders. Trying to bring it. Bring it you today. You are my chain loser. You are my chain loser. You are my chain loser. So lose my chains. My chains. I woke up with anxiety. Who am I supposed to be? I woke up with anxiety. If I become maybe it's a broken heart. I don't know where to start. Bring it you today. Yeah, bring it you today. 'Cause you are my chain loser. You are my chain loser. You are my chain loser. So lose my chain. I lose my chain. I lose my chain. I lose my Bring your freedom. Can bring forgiveness. Can bring your peace. You my redemption. Can bring your freedom. Can bring forgiveness. Can bring your peace. You're my redemption. 'Cause you are my chain loser. You are my chain loser. You are my chain loser. So lose my chains. I lose my chains. I lose my chains. My chains. My chains. God, we invite you in this room. Make us aware that you are in us. No matter who we are, no matter what we believe, no matter where we come from, no matter what we've done. You are in us. Make us aware. We want to connect with you. Get up and shut up. Don't be who you are. 'Cause if you do, you'll get feathered and tarred. Hate me for my opinions or the color of my skin. Doesn't much surprise me, 'cause I've never much fit in. When all I need is love. Different kind of us. There was a man who loved all equal, sinners and saints, paupers and kings, but he was mistaken for a liar and a ruse, bitten and spit on, killed for his views. All I need is love. Different kind of us. And all me. Right or left, gay or straight, cursed or blessed, will you take me? And all I want is love. Different kind of us. And someone who understands someday help to be a better man. Will you take me for who I am? It's grace just to better God, reveal to each one of us, reveal to me where I draw the lines in the sand for other people. Reveal to me where I draw the lines in the sand for myself, whether I'm worthy or unworthy, whether I'm accepted, unaccepted. Open up my heart to see past the cultural differences, see past my own prejudices, my own boxes. Give us the ability to see with your eyes, to love with your heart. Atmosphere is changing now. Spirit of the Lord is here. Evidence is all around. Spirit of the Lord is here. Atmosphere is changing now. The Spirit of the Lord is here. evidence is all around. The Spirit of the Lord is here, overflowing this place. Fill my heart with you, love, you love surrounds us. 'Cause you're the reason I'm here to encounter you, love surrounds us. The atmosphere is changing now. The Spirit of my Lord is here. Your evidence is all around. The Spirit of the Lord is here. So would you overflow in this place? Fill our hearts with you, love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter you, love surrounds us. Spirit of God, fall fresh on us. We need your presence. Your kingdom come, your will be done, here as in heaven. Sing that to him. Spirit of God, fall fresh on us. We need your presence. Your kingdom come, your will be done, here as in heaven. chains, so loose my chains. You are my chain loser. You are my chain loser. You are my chain loser. So lose my chains. Amen. You may be seated.
Thank you, Casey and Resonate Band. Good morning, Riverbend. My name is Scott Reeves. Good to see you guys. Good morning. Somebody's awake. It's good seeing your faces. I see a lot that I recognize and some that I don't. I tell you what, I said in the earlier service, my family and I started back here at Riverbend in 2006. Had a lot more hair back then. Our daughters were 2 and a newborn, which is crazy to think about, that I was driving around my neighborhood yesterday with my youngest. Lots changed in that time period. Something hasn't changed in that great quality of music that we get to hear every week. Can you thank those guys? Yeah. And Susie for all you guys do. Well, I want to welcome you, a special welcome to you guys that might be first-time visitors with us this morning. It's good having you here today. At the conclusion of this service, up these stairs in our Welcome Center, there'll be someone who would love to greet you and give you more information about our church, maybe point you in the right direction, help you get another cup of coffee, whatever that might be. So after this service, head on up there, and we'll be glad to meet you after the service. There's a lot going on at this place. We don't just do this. Yesterday, I think we have some pictures of some water park, miniature water park. Look at that on the campus. Kids diving in, cooling off in the hot summer months. This is an example of ways that we want to help you connect. This is a big place. I recognize that it might be a bit overwhelming to you to try to dive in. What we try to do when you're ready and if you're ready, to have some outlets for you guys to plug in here at our church. Over the course of the next few weeks, we're going to do just that. We've got, starting next Sunday, something called Riverbend Essentials. That's going to be following our earlier service and then also this service. It'll be up in the lounge area. It's going to be informal, hang out on the couches. There'll be people there to answer questions, maybe learn more about the vision of this place, the history of this place, the DNA, you might say, of what makes us tick. We'd welcome you at that. You can find out more information on our website, riverbend.com/essentials. One of my favorite things that we do on this campus every year is coming up on the 29th. That's another opportunity, if you're new, to find out more about this place. It's our Back to the Bend event. It's our big fall kickoff. Something that's going to be a little different that day, and I'll tell you about some other things that are going to be kind of cool. We're going to meet one service time here in the Home for Hope at 10 o'clock, and then at 11 o'clock, we're going to go out and we're going to do something else that we do very well here at Riverbend, and that's have a big party. There's going to be free barbecue, more great live music. I believe I heard there's going to be a virtual roller coaster. Is that right? Okay. A 200-foot zip line. What makes more sense than grabbing a barbecue sandwich and then hopping on a zip line, right? What could go wrong? It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll hope you'll come back for that. It's free. Tell your friends about it and come and hang out after church and learn more about this place and maybe meet somebody new. That's a lot of information. I mentioned our website. I'd also invite you to download our app so you can keep update on all the things that go on around this place. I'm probably forgetting something. I am. We have barbecue today because we like to eat. We've got another food truck down at the Student Center. I believe it's Simpson's Barbecue again today. We love to support our local businesses and artists like we have in this service today. So after church, head down, buy some barbecue, hang out, chat with people, and catch up. Let's see, what am I forgetting? I know, I just remembered. Susie, what am I forgetting? Forgot. See, guys, this is why they should not let me do this. I, in all honesty, have the privilege of being our mission chair at this church. Before I pray for our offering, I have to express some gratitude to you from our patrons out in the field, our volunteers, many of which I see sitting in this room today. I can't begin to tell you the gratitude that we receive from people that we're feeding and clothing. We might be offering a word of encouragement to them at their darkest point. And because of your generosity and how you show up each week, we get to keep doing that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We're about to take our offering. We have boxes around the mezzanine area, and then also you can text your donation at 84321. Thanks for your patience with me today. Thanks for being here, and will you pray with me? Dear God, thank you for allowing us this space to connect. Thank you for welcoming us in. Flawed, the broken, the battered, the bruised that we talk about here. We're in this room, God. We need you. We're grateful for your presence. We thank you for the music that we've heard that's lifted us up. Be with these gifts and the talents of this place that just put me in awe and allow us to do just amazing things. Thanks for Dave and the word of encouragement he's about to bring us. We just pray all these things in your name. Amen.
This is hard. This isn't hard. This season is hard. These are difficult days. These are discouraging times. These are dark days. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who feels it. Maybe I'm the only one who doesn't like the uncertainty. I don't know. I don't know. Perhaps I'm the only one who doesn't like the unknown. It's been 75 Sundays. 75 Sundays. Since March the 15th, 2020, when we were told to lock our doors for 3 weeks and flatten the curve. That was 75 Sundays ago. I don't know about you, but I don't like this. This uncertainty, this ambiguity, this cycle of conflict and difficulty. I don't think I'm the only one, but I don't know. Feels like we're isolated and we're alone in this. I don't even know how to feel anymore. I don't know if this is the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning. I don't know if that light that is coming toward us is a light at the end of the tunnel or a train heading directly at us. I don't know when things will be any different. I don't know if things will be any different. I don't know what normal is anymore. I don't ever know if we'll ever be normal again. I don't even know what I don't know anymore. But I do know this. I know that we are fashioned for times such as these. We are made for difficult days. We are called not just to endure times like this, but to be exceptional. In times such as these, I know that we are called to make a difference. As men and women of faith, we are called to be difference makers, to shake up the world that we live in, to be life givers. I know this because this is the calling, this is the invitation that the young Galilean rabbi, Jesus of Nazareth, extended to anyone who would follow him. If you want to follow me, you will be exceptional. There was a day, and he said this all the time, but there was one particular day when he was teaching on the northern end of Israel, north of the Sea of Galilee, on a small mount. It's called the Sermon on the Mount. And it was there, on the Sermon on the Mount, he said, if you want to be my followers, you will be three things. You will be the salt of the earth, you will be the light of the world, and you will be perfect as my Father in heaven is perfect. Now that is hard. That's not just hard, that's impossible. But that is our mission. That is our calling. Our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to be exceptional, to be salt and light and perfection in a dark and difficult world. To shake things up, to be difference makers. But how do we do it? How are we salt and light and perfection in a difficult world? Well, I want to spend the next few weeks talking very specifically about how we make a difference in a world of uncertainty, in a world of discouragement, in dark and difficult days. How do we make a difference? And I want to begin today by shaking out the salt. But before we talk about that, would you pray with me? Father in heaven, I would ask that the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart would be pleasing in your sight. That you would use your word spoken by your servant and anointed by your Spirit to challenge us and to commit us to be exceptional and to make a difference. May we shake things up today and in the days to come. Pray that for myself and for my family and for all of us here. For I ask that in Jesus' name. Amen. Almost since human civilization began, going back as far as we know, at least 8,000 years, people have considered something that we take for granted, something that we think is almost free, kind of random, as one of the most valuable commodities on earth. For thousands of years, salt was more valuable than gold. In the ancient Chinese civilizations, in India, in the Middle East, in Europe, and in Africa, much of the history of the development and the industrialization and the colonization and the growth of civilization centered around the processing and the mining and the trading of salt. Salt was considered actual currency for thousands of years. It was exchanged for goods and services. In fact, in the Latin language, the word that we use for salary, the word salary, literally comes from the root word, the Latin word, for salt. There's a city called Saltnisana in Bulgaria. It is believed by some historians to be Europe's first city. It was first populated in 5400 BC. almost 7,400 years ago. And it actually is named, Saltnessana means salt works. The city of Salzburg in Austria means salt castle. Many of the roads that were developed and the engineering that took place in the Roman Empire were roads that were built and bridges that were constructed for the transportation and the interchange of salt. Wars have been fought over the rights to salt. In fact, salt was weaponized in many wars where a conquering nation would sow salt into the fields of the people that they had conquered, not just to inhibit the fertile soil, but actually as an arrogant statement that we have so much power, we can litter salt in our wake and leave you with nothing but dead earth. Virtually every religion on earth has used salt ceremonially. In fact, in the Hebrew Bible, there are 35 references to salt, the first of which is in Genesis. In the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, perhaps you remember it, where Lot and his family are told to flee before Sodom and Gomorrah are destroyed, and they are warned not to look back. But if you remember the story, Lot's wife turned around and looked back at the destruction, and she was turned into a pillar of salt. There was an act in the book of Leviticus, in the ceremonial offerings, in the grain offerings, where they were told to have a covenant of salt. They were to use salt in the offerings that they made of the grain. In fact, the rabbi, Saul of Tarsus, writing as the Apostle Paul, understood the value of salt metaphorically. He said in Colossians chapter 4 that when you reason your faith, you should speak and let your speak be seasoned with salt. Let it be measured. Let it be added in its value. In Matthew chapter 5, as Jesus stood on the Sermon on the Mount and he called his followers not just to be users of salt, but he called his followers, he called us to be salt. He said, you are the salt of the earth. Now, we understand that salt has many uses. There are industrial uses and chemical uses and scientific and culinary uses for salt. I mean, my mom had at least a dozen uses for salt that I didn't really understand. My mother would make me gargle with salt water when I had a sore throat. And my father would take salt out and spread it on the patio to kill the grass that grew up between the stones. I never understood how those two things together. My mother would clean her iron and her cutting board with salt. In fact, my grandfather had this tradition of cleaning his car windows with wet newspaper scoured in salt because he believed that it would prevent the windows from frosting up. My mother would make a compress of water and salt and put it on poison ivy or bee stings. But as Jesus was teaching in the Sermon on the Mount, and he told his followers that you are to be the salt of the earth, of all of the things that salt was useful for, there were probably two things that they understood salt added value to just more than anything else. First of all, they understood that salt was a preservative. They understood that salt preserved organic materials. Salted meat and salted vegetables would be preserved over the long haul. They wouldn't spoil or rot. Now, they didn't understand the chemistry that was going on. They didn't understand what was going on, that the salt molecule, the group 1 element, sodium, and the group 7 element, chloride, were kind of out on the hunt for random electrons. You could say they were scoping and hoping. And hydrogen and oxygen, which is water, has these electrons that they love to share. And so they would break the bond of the salt. And basically what happens is you rub the salt on the meat, and it draws the water out of the meat and dries the meat out. And then the water evaporates in the air, and all that's left is the salt. And so the meat or the organic material is now absent from water in which microbes or bacteria would grow, which would create spoilage. They didn't understand that. They just understood that salt was a preservative. And when Jesus said, don't just use salt, be salt, he was saying your role in the world is to preserve the things that are important. Any of you been to the airport recently? Like in the last couple months? Anybody been to the airport? My wife and I made a couple of trips over the last couple months, and I was shocked. I was shocked at our little Austin airport. It was jammed. Both times we were there, the place was packed. I mean, the lines at security, first thing in the morning, were over an hour long. There were hundreds of people winding their way through the concourses just to get into the terminal. But that wasn't the most shocking thing. I think I understand the pent-up demand. Everybody's saying, we got to get out. We got to go somewhere. We got to go to Vegas or something. And everybody was getting on airplanes. But that wasn't the most shocking thing. The most shocking thing to me was standing in the terminal and watching thousands of people walk around with masks on. It was like something out of a science fiction movie. I can tell you that in the 16 years I've been in Austin, there's never been a time when I went to the Austin airport where I didn't see somebody I knew, or somebody who knew me didn't come up and say, hey, Dave, how you doing? It's nice to meet you. It's nice to see you. But both times we were at the airport, even though it was completely full of people, I didn't recognize anyone, and no one recognized me. You know why? Because we all looked the same. Because even though we had different kinds of masks on, all of us were homogenized, depersonalized. We were isolated in a crowd because we were no longer individuals. We were homogenized, and it was like a science fiction movie where everyone looked like drone versions of each other. If there's anything that we should be aggressively preserving in this season, it is the value of shared lives. I don't think we realize, I don't think we have begun to understand how we are suffering from the isolation of these 75 weeks, of this season where we have been forced to congregate in small groups and to separate ourselves. And we can live in isolation. We can live as individuals. We are resilient. And most of us would do fine on our own, but we are built for community. And if there's one thing that we are called to do in times like this, is we are called to remember that our lives are meant to be shared. It's where the meaning, it's where the significance, it's where the fulfillment is. It is in the fellowship. It is in the community. It is in the relationships. It is most especially in family. I think if there's something that we are called to be salt, to represent a preservative of, it is the value of family. Because when it gets right down to it, I define a family as a relationship where your concerns and your well-being and your success and your happiness is as important, if not more important, than my own. And it's in those relationships that we find our purpose and our meaning. And they are at great risk in this day, in this season of 75 weeks of separation. We are more desperately in need of the reminder that we need each other, that we need to care for each other. If we are going to be salt in this season and make a difference, we need to be people who fiercely fight for and represent and preserve the value of each other, the value of community, specifically the value of family. Now, it's interesting to me that we know something about salt that they didn't know 2,000 years ago. Medically, we know that too much salt can be bad for you. that you can actually harden, what my parents would call harden your arteries. You can harden your heart. I'm going to wear this metaphor out here, just in case you're not familiar. You see, they understood metaphorically what Jesus was saying. You need to be useful. But the problem is we have a tendency to focus on the salt instead of what the salt is supposed to preserve. We focus on the form instead of the essence. And too much salt is actually dangerous. It's actually bad for you. Just enough salt to preserve what's important is what we are called to be. On that day when Jesus challenged his followers to be exceptional and to be the salt of the earth, they understood metaphorically exactly what he was talking about. They knew what it was, not just to use salt, but to be salt. They knew they were to be a preservative, but they knew a second thing also. They knew that salt enhanced the flavor of things, that salt made things taste better, that salt enhances how we experience food and life. Now, they didn't understand how taste works. In our day, it's believed that there are basically 5 primary taste sensations. We taste salty, we taste sweet, we taste sour, we taste bitter, we taste umami. Umami is that flavor that you might call savory. It comes from glutamic acid. MSG is a savory enhancer. It is monosodium glutamate. It's savory is what you taste in a really good steak or a really perfect tomato, a slice of tomato or a fresh vegetable. You taste that savory, the umami. They didn't understand that was what was going on. They just understood that salt made things taste better. How do we know that that's true? There's a Latin word for salted food that we use all the time. The word is salad. That's how they described salted vegetables, as salad. We understand that salt makes food better. If you go to the grocery store, there's an entire aisle of salty snacks. You can go and you can find salted pistachios and salted cashews and salted mixed nuts. I didn't even realize it, but you can spend $10 on a candy bar. $10 on Ghirardelli's Sea Salt Soiree. It's salted dark chocolate. You can spend $7 on Lily's salted caramel and milk chocolate. Or maybe you spend about $3.50 for this almonds and sea salt and dark chocolate, 72% cocoa. I know some of you are like, give that to me right now. Because our bodies crave salt. So I spent some time and I said, okay, why is that? What's going on biologically? What's going on chemically? And I read a bunch of articles and I found this one article, and the article said, you know what salt does biologically in our bodies? Salt suppresses bitterness. And I thought, oh baby, there's a message right there. I am going to lay this on Riverbend on Sunday. We are called to be salt. And you know what salt does? Salt suppresses bitterness. Oh man, that'll preach all day long. Because all I want to do is say to people, stop your whining. Stop your complaining. Stop all of your moaning and crying. And that's what I'm supposed to do because I'm salt. And I suppress your bitterness. I'm basically saying, shut up. And so, I had this part of this message and it was all wired out. I was ready. I'm just going to wear that metaphor out. We are the suppressors of the bitter. That's what we are. So, early in the week, I was putting these things together. I had read these articles, and I wanted to kind of fact check it. And what I do when I fact check it is I have a friend here at Riverbend who is a science nerd of the highest order. He's an Ivy League educated scientist, and if I have questions about chemistry or engineering or physics or biology, I'll email him and I'll say, "Is this true?" or "How does this work?" And so I emailed him, and he emailed me back, And he said, no, that's not exactly true. You can't preach that salt suppresses bitterness. And I went, dang it. That would have been such a great message for me to stand up here and say, we are the salt, we are the bitterness suppressors. But he said, that's not exactly how it works. In fact, this is what he emailed me. He said, what does change is the intensity of the flavor. Since the water is no longer there to dilute the organic compounds that cause the taste buds to fire. And the salt isn't really suppressing any taste, although some might be less evident as others come forward. You're simply getting more of what you had for flavor, just for the reason that the only dilution is your own saliva. And basically what he was telling me is it's not what you subtract, it's what you add. It's not about suppressing bitterness. It's about adding something that adds to the flavor. It's what it means to enhance something. It's not about calling something out as wrong. It's about identifying what there is right. That's what it means to be salt. It's not about subtraction, it's about addition. It's not about suppression, it's about enhancing. Salt makes it better. It doesn't remove the struggle. It doesn't deny the reality of the difficulty. It just finds the things to be thankful for in the midst of it. You know what it means to be salty? It means to be grateful. It means to be thankful. It means to find those things that are worth remembering, that are worth focusing on, even in the difficult times, even in the darkest of days. 2 weeks ago, my family experienced what I would call a Class B miracle. Class A miracles are parting the Red Sea, walking on the water, raising the dead. Those are Class A miracles. Class B miracles are those things that you don't think they can possibly happen, but it actually does. And we had a Class B miracle because my entire family, my brother, my sister, their spouses, their children, my children's spouses, all were together in one place at one time. I didn't think we could pull it off. But 2 weeks ago, we got together on our family farm in Pennsylvania. We have been trying to do this since my mom died 2.5 years ago. We're trying to have a memorial for her, but since then, my aunt died of COVID and my father died. And we hadn't had a chance since the end of 2018 to get together as a family. And so we gathered together on our family farm up in Pennsylvania. It's not really our farm anymore. 20 years ago, my parents sold a portion of the farm to the township, to Ross Township, and it was with the stipulation that 100 acres of what was our farm would be in perpetuity a public park. And it is called the Van Buskirk Haney. Van Buskirk was my mother's maiden name. Van Buskirk Haney Community Park. And 2 weeks ago, my entire family came together to have an interment ceremony for my mother and my father and my aunt and my uncle at the church my great-grandfather had built down the road from our farm, and to gather together to reminisce. And it was a profoundly sad time for me. It was the end of a generational legacy. It meant that my brother and my sister and I were now the current representatives of a family legacy that had gone back for centuries. And so there was part of this that was overwhelming in its weight and its sadness for me. But there were things about it for which I will always be thankful. And one of them is that we were able to gather together with my children and my children's spouses and my nieces and my sister and my brother. And we poured through thousands of photographs that had been collected going back to the early 1800s, family photos. And we sat in in a pergola there on the park and just reminisced about family. And we were able to tell my children about their great-grandparents and their great-great-grandparents and the legacy of their family. But the thing that was overwhelmingly amazing for me was I had a chance with my two sons-in-law. Well, one of them is my son-in-law, Jeremy. The other one, Brendan, is going to be my son-in-law in 3 weeks. So he's my son-in-law. And I took them into the old barn, the barn that I grew up with, the barn that my grandfather built. And I showed them all of the hand-hewn beams and where I used to climb around as a kid, told them my stories about milking the cows and working with my grandfather on the farm. And then we climbed down into the milking barn underneath the main barn, and I showed them an inscription. And there on the plaster wall, on the foundation of the barn, was an inscription, and you may not be able to read it, but it basically says, "This barn was finished in the year 1911 by William Searfoss." William Searfoss owned a farm down the road from my grandfather. "And by hod carrier Ralph Van Buskirk, my grandfather." As a strapping young man, he was the hod carrier. You know what a hod is? A hod is kind of a V-shaped thing that masons and plasterers carry bricks and mortar and plaster and stones in. So if you're basically the transporter of the materials, you're the hod carrier. And that was my grandfather. And I stood there with my two sons-in-law. And I said, "This is my legacy. This is my history. This is my family." 110 years ago, when my grandfather was a young, strapping man, before I was even imagined in his mind, this is my history. This is my heritage. And I could say to them, "And now it's yours. As my sons, you're grafted in. As you marry my daughters, you're grafted in. And my history is your history. And my legacy is your legacy." And in the midst of what was overwhelmingly melancholy and sad, there was a moment for which I will always be thankful that I can invite these two young men to share in that legacy and that history. And I was salting them. I was saying, you will always remember that this is part of your family. See, I think this is what it means. This is what it means when Jesus says, "I don't want you to just use salt. I want you to be salt. I want you to preserve those things that are important. And I want you to enhance the life when it's difficult. Enhance the beautiful, grateful, thankful things." But there's a warning there. Jesus doesn't just say you are the salt of the earth. He includes a warning. And he says it like this. He says, can salt become salty again once it loses its saltiness? It is no longer worth anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. Jesus is basically saying that we are called to be salt, which means we are called to be useful. How does salt lose its saltiness? Basically, if you break down a sodium chloride ion, if you break down sodium and chloride into their individual pieces, if you break the bond that makes salt, you know what you get? You get two poisons. You get two very dangerous materials. It's not that it's not salt any longer, it's actually poisonous. Sodium and chloride are poisonous materials, poisonous liquid, and poisonous gas. And I think it's not too much to stretch the metaphor to say that we lose our saltiness when we break the bond. When we break the bond between us and our Creator, and we break the bonds between us and each other, which is why we're supposed to remain salt. But I don't think they understood that 2,000 years ago. You know how they would have understood that? You know how saltiness loses its how salt loses its saltiness? It's simple. It stays in the ground. It stays in the shaker. Salt is useless until it's poured out, until it's applied, until it's used. It's a warning. Not just to use salt, but to be salt, to be useful, to be exceptional. These are hard times. There's no doubt. These are hard days. These are difficult days. 75 weeks, who would have thought that 75 weeks later we would still be measuring our activities? We would still be concerned about gathering together, about living in the normal rhythm, the familiar rhythm of our life. Who would have imagined that? And I don't know. I don't know how long this is going to last. I don't know if this is the new normal, if this is the new rhythm of our life, if this is how we will live from here on out. I don't know, but I do know this, that we are fashioned for days such as these. That for those of us who are men and women of faith, that we are called to be useful and called to be exceptional. That we are called to be salt of the earth and the light of the world, and to be perfect as our Father in heaven is perfect. This is hard. It's not just hard, it's impossible. It's an impossible mission. But this is our mission, should we choose to accept it. So I would say, let's shake things up a little bit, huh? And let's stay salty, Riverbend.
All right, now I know we're back. Could you sit and wait for all your goodness? Hope to feel your presence, and I could just stay right where I am and hope to feel you. Hope to feel some like Dave said, let's shake some things up this week. God, help us be salty. May you see him in your day today, your week, your car, your home, your wins and your losses. You guys go with God. Go in peace. We'll see y'all next Sunday. I will be yours. I will be yours for all my life. I will be yours. I will be yours for all my life. me deeper and